Ghana wishes to draw attention to the very consequential resolution which President John Dramani Mahama of Ghana will be tabling on the 25th of March, which is just next week, Wednesday, a few days from now. This is a resolution seeking to declare the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. For more than 300 years, Africans were treated as property, were tortured, humiliated, raped, and forced out of the continent, over 12.5 million of them, in the most dehumanizing and despicable circumstances. The world is yet to acknowledge this. Perpetrators are yet to apologize and have not compensated the victims. This is the time to demand reparative justice, and this is the time to demand restitution.
Today, I have titled this, Why Africa Must Stand with Ghana at the United Nations. My brothers and sisters, Ghanaians, Nigerians, South Africans, Africans on the continent, Africans across the diaspora. Something historic is about to happen. On March 2026, Ghana will stand before the United Nations and demand that the transatlantic trade be officially declared as the gravest crime against humanity. But let us be clear, this is not just Ghana's movement. We are not here to talk about Ghana. This is not just Ghana's movement. This is a test to Africa. And that is why I am calling on all Africans, all Pan-Africanists. Because the question is no longer what happened to us. The question is, do we have the courage to name it properly? For centuries, Africa has been told its story by others. We were told slave trade was a tragedy, colonization was a mission, exploitation was development. But let us confront the truth. Between the 15th and the 19th century, over 12 to 15 million Africans were forcibly taken across the Atlantic Ocean, and that number did not include those who died during raids when they would come to our rooms, our houses to pick people. Those who perished on the journey to the coast. I've read books that put the numbers at millions of people who died in the ocean. And those who died in the middle of the passage. Historians estimate that millions more died before even reaching the ships. Entire societies, entire nations were destabilized. Strong men, strong women, and I mean the young ones, the backbone of Africa's economy, were removed to go and support other countries' economy. This was not just slavery. This was systematic destruction of the African continent's future. And when slavery formally ended, the voice did not stop. The violence did not stop. Let us remember the Congo under King Leopold II of Belgium. And for me, King Leopold II of Belgium is one of the most wicked person that ever lived. Yet history doesn't mention his name. You hear about people like Idi Amin and others. I am not here to justify what Idi Amin and others did. But because people have been writing our stories and our histories for us, they have portrayed those people as the worst. But did you know that over 10 million, in fact, some researchers put it as even 15 Africans died under the Congo Free State, which was led by King Leopold II of Belgium. This was not in war. It was not famine. People did not die in war. It was not famine. This was under a system designed for robber extraction and profit. Men, women, and children were mutilated, forced into labor, executed for not meeting quotas. Hands were cut off as proof of punishment. And if you must know, what was happening back then was that the soldiers who were sent to Congo as the farm managers, they were actually awarded or promoted based on the number of hands that were cut. Entire villages were wiped out. And yet today, his name is barely mentioned in global conversations. There are no constant documentaries, no yearly remembrance on the global media, and there is no global outrage. Nobody even cares. And why is this happening? Because Africa has not controlled the narrative. Let us come home to Ghana. Let me tell you about what happened in the region that I come from. A king called Badu Bonsu. He was the leader of our people. Because he resisted exploitation by the Dutch in the year 1838 specifically, the Dutch beheaded him. Because he stood against their control and their injustice, they beheaded him in public. In fact, before his people. What will you think his people would become? His people will become slaves to the Dutch, of course, and they will obey whatever the Dutch would say. In fact, this is one of the violence that Frantz Fanon writes about. You know, the most demeaning part of it is that it did not end there when the guy was killed. His head was taken to Europe and it was kept in a jar in a Dutch museum. In fact, I recently read that it was kept in the lab of one of the Dutch universities, the top universities anyways, for nearly 170 years. And it was only in 2009 that his remains were finally returned to Ghana. You know, the funny part about it, I was talking to my course mates, my office mate who is Dutch by the way, and I told him about this story, and I was talking to my girlfriend also, and I told her about the story. By the way, my girlfriend was Dutch, and then when I told her about the story, do you know what she told me? Yeah, but those people, they think that they were using voodoo. And I'm like, so that is the story and the justification that have been told to you guys, that the guys were using voodoo. And if they were using voodoo, who were you to come and behead them? They were on their land and they were using voodoos. This is not just history. This is humiliation institutionalized. How do you kill a person and take the head and keep in a jar for hundreds of years, over 170 years? And this is exactly what Frantz Fanon warned us about. Fanon said colonization does not only exploit, it reorders the world in such a way that it oppressed begins to question, the oppressed begin to question their own worth. It erases memory, it distorts identity, and it normalizes injustice. So when Ghana stands at the United Nations, this is not about reopening wounds. This is about correcting a lie. A lie that colonization was meant to bring civilization to Africa. Because let us not forget, after slavery ended, slave owners were compensated, but the enslaved received nothing. No land, no wealth, no restoration. Instead, Africa entered into another phase, colonialism. Then another phase, neo-colonialism. And the Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah talks a lot about this. And in his book, I don't know if Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. It's a good book that you need to read. And today, we are told, forget about the past, focus on development. Sometimes people even be like, it's been a lot of years. Why are you guys still blaming us? Why are you guys still blaming the Europeans? Forget about it. We cannot forget about it. How do you build a future when the foundation is never acknowledged? Ghana's resolution is not symbolic, it is strategic. It seeks official recognition of the slave trade as the gravest crime, a framework for repatriation, a return of stolen cultural artifacts. And if you must know, recently the UK sent part of the stolen artifacts to Ghana, to the Otumfuo Osei, and actually it was loaned to the Ashanti region. Even though they know that they stole it from us, they loan it back to us. So Ghana is calling for all these stolen artifacts to be returned. Lastly, it seeks a global acknowledgement of structural inequality. This is the beginning of what African Union has called the decade of repatriation. which is going to be from 2026 to 2036. And let us understand something clearly. This is not about revenge. No, this is about justice. Because history is not just about the past. History defines who is rich, who is poor, who has power, and who is to be patient. If Africa does not support Ghana now, we are choosing silence over truth. We are choosing comfort over dignity. Pan-Africanism demands more from us because the slave trade did not affect one country, it affected Africa. From the coast of Ghana to the interior of Congo to the kingdom of West and Central Africa, Africa was targeted. Africa must respond as one. There will be resistance. Some will say this is too much. This will create division. Let us move forward. This is what people are going to say. There is no forward without the truth. And truth does not destroy relationship. Not at all. In fact, I recently heard that it is even better for you to be divided by the truth than to join in error. Truth actually purifies relationship. This is also about rewriting our own history. For far too long, our stories have been told by others. Our pains have been minimized and our resistance has been erased. We must change that. We must teach the names they ignored, the crimes they softened, the system they justified. Because if we do not define what happened to us, others will continue to define it. Today, I call on all Africans to stand with Ghana and stand in unity with us. Salute. Hope from Africa.